This video is brought to you by my new book, The Boy Without Magic, available in both ebook and paperback. Links in the description. I have to be honest, the reason I checked this game out was because of an article on One Angry Gamer that mentioned how this was an Amnesia-style horror title that tried to shake that formula up by letting the player fight back against the monsters. That piqued my interest with images of sneaking and evading enemies in the shadows before getting the drop on lesser foes and striking them down in bloody fashion. Then I played it, and it seems the image I had in my head was more than a far cry from reality. Doesn't mean I found Folia Dear Father to be bad. Far from it. What I did find was a game that succeeded in being scary alongside being mediocre. Folia follows Marcus Pitt, who's come to a university late at night. After receiving an email claiming that his missing parents are there. Hoping to find them, he explores the halls only to walk headfirst into blood-soaked horror. Now, this is a solid premise, but it's undermined by some very poor storytelling. One problem is a lack of voice acting. There's some at the beginning and near the end, but in the middle, Marcus never says a word despite not being established as a silent protagonist. Only retching or holding back vomit when walking near some gore here or there for the first time. So it's hard to root for a character's plight when they come off as detached from what unfolds around them. And whatever storytelling there is primarily relegated to documents, and unfortunately, this ain't necessarily Dark Souls where you can get away with putting the lore behind text descriptions. It isn't helped by the presentation being very lackluster either, with character models that look like they're from the original release of Agony, or animations that just lack any weight to them. So pivotal moments come off as awkward or confusing, the latter just coming out of nowhere, catching you off guard, not with a scare, but with just confusion, as you suddenly realize what is happening after you've lost control of the character. As stated before, Folia clearly takes inspiration from Amnesia, but unlike the infinite number of asset flip knockoffs on Steam, does try to shake things up with some ideas of its own, which is commendable, even if the execution can be lacking. The biggest is what got me interested in the game in the first place, the combat. How it works is you're meant to use hacking and blocking to try and stagger enemies, in order to give yourself a window to run and hide. The problem with this is that the tells are either too short, or not obvious enough to tell when you've staggered an enemy. So your better option by default is to just ignore combat and run, making the mechanic ultimately pointless and a waste of time. However, a real highlight was something I was not expecting. With these games, the player has some sort of light source that they have to use in order to see better in the dark, but at the risk of detection, usually a torch that runs on fast draining batteries. Folia handles this really well by giving the player two sources of light, a lighter and a torch. The real strength is that these function differently with their own weaknesses and benefits. The lighter is unlimited but goes out if you run and can only illuminate what's around you, while the torch illuminates everything in front and doesn't go out, but it needs to be fed batteries regularly or else you can't use it. This is great since it gives the player something else to consider in the back of their head, not only with resource management, but also whether or not they want to risk greater exposure or deal with more limited visibility, which really does help the game put you in the right mindset to get scared. I should also make it clear that yes, the game is scary. It's by no means a Silent Hill or a Dark Descent, but Folia did succeed in getting me with almost every scare, including the jump scares. This is thanks to it having an admittedly solid atmosphere that is helped by the fact the game takes its time. It's not afraid to use a slow burn to build up the atmosphere and tension. In fact, you don't even run into your first monster until around halfway through the second area, and shows that while the execution may have been lacking, actual care and thought did go into Folia. It also helps that the game has believable environments. The graphics as a whole aren't great, but the rooms of the university do look far superior compared to the character models. And the layout, while questionable at times, does feel like a believable layout for a real-life campus. There's also some diversity with the enemies, and that each one is a unique challenge with different tactics. One is basically a monster from Amnesia, while another has a lantern that makes it harder to sneak when it's nearby, and another wears a torch that lets it see everything in direct sight, so you can't really rely on the same stealth strategy every time, keeping the player on edge whenever you meet a new enemy for the first time. All in all, I can't say that I enjoyed all of my time with Folia. At times, I actually struggled to keep playing it and kept getting distracted with other games, but I didn't hate it either. It's a mediocre title with flashes of creative brilliance that show its developer Real Machine Game is a team with real passion driving them, and I do think that what we have here holds the potential for true brilliance, and I do hope that we see a sequel, one that addresses the problems holding this one back while enhancing the aspects that are worthy of praise. If you got nothing better to do and can forgive some technical shortcomings, then I'd say that this game is worth a curious gander at the very least. Alright, thanks for checking out this review. I hope you guys appreciate it, and if you really liked it, then by all means hit the like and the subscribe buttons. That would really help me out in the algorithm. Now for the next game review, I haven't really picked anything yet. There are a few things who have caught my eye, and I've also had some ideas of maybe doing an obscure games showcase this year. Not sure if I'll be doing that for next month or the month after, but for now it's wait and see. But for movie reviews, I'm planning to take a look at the Artemis Fowl movie. I've heard so many bad things about it, and I'm interested in seeing how bad it really is. I've got all that and more coming up, so please stick around.